All right. So again, welcome to the WEHA Wednesday webinar, and we will get started here with Jared Williams.
Okay, can you see my screen? You can see the presentation?
Yes.
All right, perfect. And actually, I can see the camera, so if you want to hold your sign up, you're good.
Actually, it looks like we're seeing more of you, though. Could you try screen sharing again? I just see your screen in the bottom corner.
Really?
Oh,
Okay.
nope, I think
Oh,
we got it.
no, I just turned it off. Screen share.
Perfect.
Okay. All right, I am Jared Williams. I've been with DACAP for going on 18 years now. Like Deanna said, I started out as a weights and measures inspector, and then I took over the LPO program, which is local program operators. Most of them are firefighters, and they do tank inspections for us, and then we pay them for doing those tank inspections. So when I started, at one point there were over 100 LPO units, but when I took it over, we were down to around 30, and that number kind of dwindled over time just for firefighters took on a lot more duties and responsibilities, and some of them were finding it hard to complete their tanks and do these inspections for us. So some of them dropped out, but as of the end of last year, we were down to, I think, 17 LPO units, about 40 inspectors. And so then our bureau, DACAP, decided to do a reorg and then repurpose me into more of a training role and spread out the LPOs back over the field supervisors. So their main contacts are now the 4 field supervisors that we have. Let's see, there we go. So I just put together a little slideshow here, hit some of the main points, which we had talked about. I had talked about with Deanna. So the Bureau of Weights and Measures mission uses its enforcement resources to carry out the department's mission to maintain, preserve, and promote the public health, safety, and welfare in accordance with the statutes and rules it administers.
Less stress. On the other hand, I think sometimes I thrive with having more of that.
Oh, I heard somebody's camera or somebody's microphone.
Jared, I'm sorry. Can you unmute yourself?
Yep, I just did. I saw that pop up. Can you hear me again?
Yes.
Okay, so the principles of equity, due process, objectivity, and accountability guide the Bureau of Weights and Measures. So that's just our mission that's out there. Everybody can see that. Oh, there we go. So some of the things that we do with the Bureau of Weights and Measures, we do petroleum inspections as well. It's just our bureau is called Weights and Measures because the petroleum program has been kind of all over the place. Petroleum has been with Commerce. They've been with DISPIS. There's another one or two that they've been with too. And it was about 7-8 years ago, I think, that they decided to merge the petroleum inspection program with the Weights and Measures program. Because in the past, if you would go to a gas station, one of our inspectors would go there and we were testing the fuel quantity. So we would go in, we'll take a 5-gallon draft of every pump, every grade, and make sure that you're getting what you paid for. On a separate occasion, a petroleum inspector would show up at that same gas station, and we never coordinated together, and they would do fuel quality. So they were taking fuel samples, making sure that everything was, 87 was 87, that there was no water in the fuel. So it seemed like the perfect marriage that why not, why do you have 2 different inspectors going there doing 2 different things to the same station? So now when we merged, we were trained, all the weights and measures inspectors were trained to do petroleum inspections, and petroleum inspectors were trained to do weights and measures inspections. So the idea was you go to a gas station and you do everything. So you're checking the quantity and the quality, and you're doing it all at once. And it definitely made a lot of sense. We went to about 30 inspectors that are out there. They're all spread out throughout the entire state and have different territories. And then you had your LPOs, which they only do non-retail sites. So it made sense for everybody to whittle that down and have only one person doing everything at a time when you're there. So that's one of the things we do. We do conduct continuing education training. So anybody that is an inspector has to go through the initial new inspector training, which I do. And at one point that was a 5-day class, and I whittled that down to about 3 because it just made sense to do that. And so they get that, then they have their inspector certification. In order to maintain their certification, they have to have 12 continuing education credits. They can get those. We offer through DATCAP 12 a year, but they need 12 over 2 years. So we have our annual policy and procedure meeting. We have regional meetings. There's different trainings that we host throughout the year that they can get continuing education credits for. So once they do that, they get their credits. That's all tracked by us. And then their certification renews. Well, they send in their renewal, and it renews on their due date. There's also contractors that have to go through continuing education credits. So let's say a above ground storage tank installer, somebody who installs above ground tanks, they have to be certified through the state to do that work. And they also have to go through and get credits each year to maintain their status and to renew their status. So I actually have the tank inspector certification, the AST installer certification, and the UST installer certification because I was required to do that with my position. Some of the other things we do is determine the status of compliance by those regulated through programs of inspection and investigation, including sampling, analysis, and special investigations. So this is what I was saying. We go out there like with anything with a weight or a measure, we handle that. I've had cases in the past where it was an online thing where somebody bought a snow blower and they got a great deal, and then they got a snow blower, brand new $600 snow blower for $30 or something like that. It was really ridiculous. But and it was through Sears, and then Sears made the mistake on their website, and it's like, okay, well, that's not the customer's mistake. They are entitled to get this at what they got, and they ended up doing it. You know, at first Sears kind of fought with us and said, hey, there's people found a glitch here and found a way to get around this. And it's like, I finally came down to it, and I was in the enforcement conference with them, and I said, look, I don't care about the other 1,999 people that you say found this way to scam the system. I care about the one that's sitting right here in front of us now. And at the end of the day, they came back, and I think they agreed that it was, they realized it was probably in their best interest to take care of this one, because if that spiraled out of control, then they could have a lot more they had to deal with. So those are some kind of special investigations that we do. And I mean, I was all over the place with that. When I was on the phone, I was visiting stores, yeah. And so we're not afraid to take on the big corporations either if we have to. But conducts correctional and disciplinary program under which non-complying persons, after full opportunity to comply, are subjected to the administrative or judicial remedies. So basically what that means is we have a step program, basically. So we're doing a petroleum inspection. We go out to a gas station and we do our inspection. If everything's good, they get an inspection report that we do right there on site, because we have laptops, printers, field scanners, everything. We're set up. Our trucks are our work vehicles. So we leave a report right there. If there's something wrong, then we write an order. And that's a 15-day order, which has progressed over time too. It used to be a 10-day order, then a 5-day order. Now, one 15-day order, they have 15 days to correct the situation. If they don't correct it, then we can go out and we'll place a red tag on their system, usually on the tank fill, so they can't get any more fuel. We want them to use that fuel that's already in those tanks so that it's not sitting there and it doesn't just end up, sitting in the tank forever, and then the tank leaks and it goes into the ground. So we'll red tag their fill so they can't get any more fuel. And then that red tag will stay on until they bring that system back into compliance. If they don't bring it back into compliance, it can escalate to an enforcement conference, which then they'll come in and there could be forfeitures assessed with that. Or from there, with especially with a storage tank, it can be referred over to the DOJ, the Department of Justice, and they'll impose their own fines, and they will actually force them to remove those tanks from the ground if they're underground tanks. So it's a step program. You know, we always start with education and information, some things, and after you've done it for a long time, I was in the field for a long time, everybody kind of develops their own way of handling things. When I would take over a new territory, usually my first thing was, look, okay, I'll help people. You don't want to go in with guns ablazing and just start red tagging everybody and shutting people down, because that gets back to the secretary's office and people don't like that. So you gotta kind of know who your players are. So you get to learn what, who you can trust and who's going to do things if you tell them to. So a lot of times to start out, I would put stuff in notes and I would say, look, this needs to be done. Only for minor things. If it was a major thing, absolutely the order was written. But minor things like signage, they're required to have an overfill alarm sign. So for their tank overfill alarm, it has to have a sign that is posted right there so that the delivery drivers know where that alarm is at. And even customers, if it's going off, they know what that is. So something like that, I would put into notes, talk to the owner about it, because maybe it was a new owner that just took over. The second time I was there, and we do these inspections annually. So the second time I was there, if they had the same issue, well, then I would write the order, because it's like, look, I told you the first time, and you get to know your people over time, because our territories usually stand pretty pat over time. And then the fourth one here, evaluates continuously the effectiveness of the laws and rules administered. So we had an issue with this kind of bullet point here came up too with chapter 168. We used to regulate above ground tanks that were 110 gallons and above, and underground storage tanks 60 gallons and greater. So a couple of years back, when Walker was left office, he had his lame duck laws, they call them, and one of those was all state agencies had to go through their rules and their codes. There was a discrepancy between our administrative code and a statute, where the statute said we only regulated above ground tanks 5,000 gallons and greater. So at that point, we lost the jurisdiction to regulate the above ground tanks under 5,000 gallons. We've been trying diligently for the past 2 years to get them back, but it's in the legislature now, so we're trying. So the weights and measures team responsible for regularly monitoring the accuracy of gas pumps, price scanners, scales, package weights, and that's all done statewide to ensure that consumers are receiving their money's worth in Wisconsin stores. So we're not only looking out for the consumer, we're also looking out for the business. We don't do a scanner test, which is the price scanners. So we'll go and scan 50 items, and they have a threshold, they're allowed so many errors. If they have a dozen over or undercharge errors where they're losing money, we're not going to do a re-inspection on that, but we are going to note that we're going to let them know, hey, you're losing out here. You're giving things away. So we're looking out for everybody. And like when we do gas pumps, if you ever go to the gas station, you see those stickers that are on the gas pumps and it says Department of Agriculture, Trade and Consumer Protection. That's us. We put those stickers on when we do the inspections at those stations. Petroleum inspection, it's another thing that we do. Like I said, we picked that up a few years back, and that's all done through ATCP 93, which is the administrative code that we use. In 93, the flammable and combustible liquids code, that basically has everything that we handle and all of our rules concerning the flammable and combustible liquids, from what we test, how we test it, what's required for installs, closures. I mean, you name it, it's probably in there. And this is kind of the bullet points here, list that out. Pre-installation design, system design, registration of above ground flammable and combustible storage tanks, permitting and registration of underground tanks, inspection of flammable and combustible liquid storage tank systems. So this tells everything that, this is just in a nutshell. This is just kind of a real brief few of the things that we do with the petroleum. Credentialing individuals and companies, I talked about that before. Administering local program operator agents, that's the program I used to manage. So this slide I put in here, you can reach us at the general line is this 224-4942 option 3, or the DATCAP storage tanks at wisconsin.gov is our general email. So if you email something to this DATCAP storage tanks, it's monitored every day. Somebody will get back to you. And then you can also go to, if you have questions, you can go to our website, which can be found at this right here, this website here, this address. This includes references to laws and regulations, compliance forms, fact sheets. I wanted to gotta figure out how to do this now. I have it on here if I can figure out how to pull that up. Oh, here we go. New share. I'm just trying to get to our website real quick.
And Jared, we have about 5 minutes left.
Okay, well, I guess I won't go to it. I'm trying, but it's not working for me. So let me go through this real quick. Tank registration, above ground tanks, capacity of less than 1,100 gallons, which is now 5,000 gallons. There's certain ones that are exempted. So farm tanks, those, they get special exemptions. Consumptive use on the tanks, heating oil tanks. So at your home, if you have a home heating oil tank, those are usually exempted. Let's skip this one. Weights and measures, credentialing. So we credential service companies, technicians, tank specialty firms, and technicians working on storage tanks. You can find that list of those service companies and technicians can be found on our website. Technicians must be certified to do any of these special inspections or site assessment or liners, removers, cleaners, any of these special things that need to be done with a storage tank. They have to be certified to do those things. And that certification is done through us. Why do we regulate tanks that house regulated substances? So this is the purpose of this chapter. We're trying to protect the people and the environment. You can read the statute itself if you want, but that's what it comes down to in a nutshell. We're trying to protect the people and the environment. This was a sample or a picture I had from it was a closure, a removal that I had went to. This was a contaminated site. So we'll get out to a site like this, and this pea gravel is what they're pulling out of this tank bed here. And you can see it's brown, but all that black staining, that is contaminated soil. That has to be disposed of properly. They have to take it to a special place to be disposed of. They cannot reuse this stuff, and you will smell that when you get on site. You'll get there and you walk out on site and you know that, yeah, there's contamination. And that has to be reported to the DNR. And this also was at the same site. So you can see the liquid down in the hole there. When they pulled those tanks out, and you can see stuff, that extra dark layer on there, that was diesel floating on the surface of the water because it's heavier than the water. If you find, this was an important thing, this is what kind of sparked this. So if you find an underground storage tank, sometimes when they're doing new roads, all of a sudden they'll dig up a storage tank. Don't take it out right away. Contact DATCAP, call us, email us, but do not take that tank out until you've notified us, and we'll walk you through what to do with that. You'll want to get somebody out there, certified remover cleaner. We want to make sure that if we're pulling this tank out, and it's all Swiss cheese, that, hopefully there's no contamination, but we want to know all this stuff, and so does the DNR. So do not, like it says, do not remove tank until certified remover can be on site to facilitate the removal. And, we want to know as much detail as possible: location, approximate size, conditions, events that led to finding the tank. Hey, we're building a road and we uncovered this tank. So I kind of blew through those last ones real quick, but I definitely wanted to get to those. So yeah, I mean, our website, if you go there, there's a wealth of information there. I mean, you can find pretty much anything you need. And if you have other questions, you can always contact us either by email or phone. Questions?
So if you guys have a question, you can either raise your hand and unmute yourself. Otherwise, if you wanted to just put it into the chat box, then I can read it out loud. Any brave souls out there want to come off of mute and ask any question?
I have a question. This is Amy from Dunn County. I've seen oil tanks, like oil heating type tanks at restaurants, but I can't remember what you said. Did you say if they're under 5,000 gallons, you wouldn't regulate them, or you would? Because I had with a new restaurant, took over an existing restaurant with one of these oil tanks, these oil heating tanks, and she didn't know what to do with it, and I definitely didn't know what to do with it. So is it under?
Yeah, so if it's an above ground tank, so even if it's in a basement, but it's above the ground, so it's not, under the dirt anywhere, just in a basement somewhere, which is where a lot of these are. If it is under 5,000 gallons, we will not regulate that at this point. We can't. They took that away from us. Okay. And if it's in a restaurant, I'm guessing it's probably either a 500 or 1,000.
Okay, thanks.
Do you have any guidance for ones that are not really regulated at this point, but previously were?
If somebody's going to take that out, they could call a certified remover cleaner. They can go on our website and get a list of people right in their area, someone that could take that tank out. They could actually at this point take it out themselves. We don't recommend that, but because we don't want any spills or anything else. But I would recommend to them, hey, if you want to get rid of this, go to the DACAP website, find a certified remover cleaner, have them come out. They'll take the tank out. And then most of them, we've asked them to, and most of them are still doing it. They'll still give us the registration form for that tank removal so that we know if we ever get this regulation authority back on these smaller tanks, we'll know that this tank is gone. Because we have the registration, we can update our database. So, and most of the removers are really good about that. They give us all the information that we want so that we can keep our system updated as well.
And then I have one that's got several questions in it, so I'll just ask them one at a time. Do you do anything with radon?
No.
What's the most common form of contamination you deal with?
I don't know. I mean, I guess the common form of contamination is just going to be a spill from an underground tank that was, they have all these systems in place. So most of them, we had one, the pictures I showed you, that was actually a really, really big one. That was up in the Fox Valley area, up in Appleton. It leaked all the way down into the Fox River. I think what started it was people in basements, people around the community. This was from a gas station. They started smelling fumes and gas in their basements. So it gets into the ground, and I mean, it can leak all over the place, and eventually it can get to a water source. So most of the time, the contamination is usually, if it's migrating that bad, it's either diesel or it's gasoline. And we also do CERCLA listed hazardous materials tanks. So if they're CERCLA listed hazardous material, in there in a storage tank. We also regulate those tanks. But I can't think of anything where I've heard of a chemical tank that leaked or spilled anywhere. So yeah, I would say it's got to be gas or diesel, and that's just because equipment fails. Sometimes the equipment might be operating properly, but for some reason the leak is so small it just never catches it. Negligence on the owners or operators that they're just not paying attention to the systems, because we see that a lot where this alarm's been going off for a month. We only get there once a year. We can't be there every day. And this alarm's been going off for a month. They have a failure to react to an alarm that's going off. And a lot of times they'll just go in and they'll turn it off because it keeps beeping and it's annoying them. So, but they don't address the situation as to why this alarm is going off. So, we do as much as we can, and there's a lot of good owners out there too, but there's some that they just don't care. They just want to sell their gas and make their money.
Well, and I think that you just hit on that last question, which is any trends or factors concerning the contaminations. So with the negligence aspect, or sometimes it just being so small to really detect it right away.
Yep.
Anyone else with any questions? We've got just a couple minutes left here. All right. Well, it doesn't look like there's anything really rolling in here. So we will wrap up. Thank you, Jared, for joining us today. I know this was kind of a brief overview of everything. So if you do have more detailed questions, please feel free to reach them either by that phone number that was listed, or via email that he listed as well. Jared, would you mind sending me your PowerPoint so I could get that onto our website so that people have access to that as well?
Yes, yeah, I'll do that when we get done here.
Perfect. And then also join us next month in April. We're going to be doing one with a police officer doing situational awareness. So for those of you that maybe need to go into people's homes or just out doing inspections, just things to be looking for and keeping an eye out for to keep you safe. Thank you, Jared. We really appreciate your time today. And this was a great experience, something that I don't get to deal with every day. So it's nice to learn a little bit more.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.